Maddox invited anyone who had received a bicycle for Christmas to come join in an afternoon of bicycle riding on the mansion grounds. And for many of you know that Governor Maddox could ride his bicycle backwards. So that was really quite a stunt. And to the dismay of the Fine Arts Committee, Governor Maddox, brought a goose named Matt to the grounds and built a ramp up Miss Sanders' marble fountain. So he could play in the fountain, and that, as you can imagine, was not terribly popular, but the Associated Press reported that the fully grown gander would likely enjoy getting to know the other resident, a frog named Leaping Lister. So I'll hand it over to Mrs. Carter.
Well, I want to first thank Sandra for putting together the book. To go through with a project like that is a big achievement. And we all, I know, really proud of it. It's a treasure for us. And also, Betty, I want to thank you and Carl for planning the Governor's Mansion and getting it started. And like I said, it's so big and so beautiful, and the furnishings, as you heard Jimmy say, were just all authentic and all. He could not have done a better job. Thank you. Well, we moved into the mansion. It was fairly new. Les had lived there, I think, for 2 or 3 years. And we all came home. Jack was just home from the Navy. Chip and Jeff, our other two sons, were going to school at Georgia State. Amy was 3 years old. And we had all been campaigning, though, and gone and scattered across the state. And we came to the Governor's Mansion, and everybody came to the Governor's Mansion to live. And it was so wonderful to have the family together again. It quickly became home for us. And we had some problems. Not with anything wrong with the mansion, except that it was so big that communications were almost nothing. We had a hard time with communication. I remember standing in the foyer, screaming to the top of my voice, "Dinner is ready!" Because children were everywhere. And the telephone would ring, and we'd go pick it up, and it would be nobody there. We'd be in another room. You'd run to that room, and it'd already run out. And so finally we had some solutions. For the telephone, we had one ring, we did it by ring. 1 ring was for Jimmy, 2 rings were for me, 3 rings for Jack, and it went on down. And that's not the telephone. And then I had everybody in the house, all the children, the 3 boys, signed up on a poster in the kitchen whether or not they were going to be for dinner at 7 o'clock. And if they weren't, then that was just too bad. So we got those settled. And then 18 days after we moved into the Governor's Mansion, when I didn't know what I was going to do, planning everything, the Music Association of Atlanta called and asked if we would entertain Van Cliburn, who was coming, great pianist. Well, I panicked. And thank goodness Jimmy's aunt, Sissy, lived in Rosalynn. She was Jimmy's mother's sister. A lot of people knew her, Emily Darling. I called her, and she liked to entertain. And she came to help me with the Van Cliburn event. He called and said that he would like to have a steak before he played the piano, before he performed. And so she took care of him, had him a steak. We served him upstairs in the big guest room. And while I stayed downstairs to meet the Music Association, whatever it was called, gave us a list of people to invite to the reception. And it turned out to be beautiful. And I thought, well, maybe this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And so Sissy just proved to be wonderful. She organized docents. State Patrolman had been giving the tours to people. And that was State Patrolman were people that I thought, might stop you when you were speeding and stuff. lot of volunteers signed up to be the docents, and she took care of that totally, and it was really beautiful. And there's somebody here tonight who used to teach our docents about the furnishings in the governor's mansion. And but this was in and out all of the time when we were there. And then the first September we were there, we had a Southern Governors Conference in Atlanta. And I had been to the High Museum one day, just looking around and enjoying it. And I asked them a thought just came to me that I knew that museums kept paintings and stories so they could change them at times. And so I asked them, I said, do you have paintings and stories? And they said, yes. I said, would you bring a collection of them and put them around the walls in the big ballroom downstairs? They were delighted. So the day before the governor's conference, I was going downstairs, they were hanging the paintings, and I was going down the steps, and we had asked the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Robert Shaw to perform for us while the governors were there. And just as I was going down the steps, the music started. It had come to rehearse, and it was so wonderful because all of my worries about what I was going to do just kind of, I couldn't believe it was me. It was so incredible. And then we did a lot of entertaining, and a lot of guests. I remember that Henry Kissinger came at one time, and the day we had invited him to stay at the governor's mansion, and the day before he came, the advance team came to make preparations. They wanted to drill 23 holes in the floors for their telephones. We sent him to the hotel. We had the candidates for president come to the governor's mansion, and there were Muskie was one of them. And what was interesting about this was I was taking Muskie upstairs just where he was going to show him his bedroom, and he said, Mrs. Carter, would it be all right if I have a drink? And I said, of course. And what would you like? He said, whiskey and milk. And I said, mixed? And he said, yes. So I had a glass of whiskey and milk. But we had one really embarrassing thing happen. We were having a race called Drive Us for Dinner one night. And my assistant had collected letters that people had written in, people who wanted to perform in the governor's mansion. So we got out the letters and looked at them. We thought country music would be good or something. We found this man we thought would just be perfect. So we invited him to come. Everything went great. We had barbecue for dinner. Everybody's having a good time. This man stood up to sing. It was light opera. We later had, another year we had him back, and we had beautiful women dancing on the top of the table. I like that better. I have many memories. It was a wonderful experience for us to live, our whole family to live in the governor's mansion. And I have always been thankful that I had that experience before I went to the White House. I don't know what I would have done going to the White House if it hadn't been for that, because we entertained consul generals in the governor's mansion and ambassadors in the White House, members of legislature in Atlanta and Congress, and in Congress in Washington. It was, things were so similar that that time in the governor's mansion was really valuable and precious to me.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter.